Hey all, here at OS Reviews. You're watching our throwback unboxing of the Dell Venue Pro. This is a smartphone that came out in November of 2010, making it exactly 7 years old. The reason why I'm picking up kind of a new version here is because I realized that I have yet to review or use a Dell-powered smartphone. So I was really curious to see kind of what their hardware looked like and also what their software at the time was represented by. The Dell Venue Pro was one of the earlier Windows phones, so it runs on the Windows Phone OS. It has a Snapdragon S1 processor clocked at 1 GHz. It has only 512 megabytes of RAM, but that's sufficient for Windows Phone 7. That's extremely optimized to run well even on slightly older hardware. It features a 5 megapixel camera with 720p video recording and a 4.1-inch AMOLED display. The most important thing about the Dell Venue Pro is it also is a vertically sliding device, so it can slide upwards like the BlackBerry Priv to reveal a keyboard. In fact, that's another reason why I wanted to check it out, is because it reminds me so much of the much newer BlackBerry Priv. And on the inside, underneath this thick cardboard, we indeed have the box, which is still sealed with the Venue Pro. I should mention that at the time of this phone's release, the manufacturer, Dell, also had a version of the Venue Pro that ran on Android. However, that one did not have a QWERTY keyboard. For me at least, Windows Phone devices seem to be a bit more optimized to run well on lower powered hardware, whereas Android phones that have less powerful internals tend to be a bit more choppy. So hopefully this will still run relatively okay, or at least decent. So again, this is the box. You can see that it looks fairly stylish. There's the images of the device on the sides. Alright. And then lifting up the box here, we have just the phone right on top. Let's take a closer look at this in a second. Underneath we have the removable battery, and this can be swapped out, which is nice. Below this, we have some pamphlets. Now, this is Windows Phone, and the Dell Venue Pro is a fully unlocked device. So it's a quad-band GSM phone, which means that you can use it with any kind of GSM network, including AT&T, T-Mobile, etc. But it is a 3G device and not 4G LTE. So this is the instruction manual that documents how to set it up and access Windows Phone 7 OS in various languages. Coming back to the phone now and taking a look at the battery, we can see that this is a proprietary pack that has a 1,400 milliamp hour capacity. So it's not huge, especially here in 2017 standards, but on a relatively smaller phone, hopefully that will still last you for at least a day or 2 days. Here is the phone itself, the Dell Venue Pro. And of course, it definitely feels small now that we're used to phablets with 5.5-inch screen, and yet with a 4.1-inch screen, it was considered big at the time, especially next to devices like the iPhone 4S, which had only a 3.5-inch screen, and that was the norm 7 years ago. So back then, this was a large device, and it still looks respectable and quite sleek today. Not the slimmest phone, of course, but you do have chrome accents, which runs through it and makes it almost look kind of like a knife on a side. It reminds me a little bit of the LG G4 in that sense with its chrome. Otherwise, let's peel back some of these stickers. We have this very interesting textured plastic that almost reminds me of carbon fiber. It has a nice grip to the phone. The Dell logo, which is imprinted in the same way as you would see on their netbooks and computers. There's an autofocus camera, LED flash, Windows Phone logo, and if we slide open the back cover, we can see that this is the battery compartment. This is the full-sized SIM card slot next to a micro SD card slot. The phone itself does have either 8 or 16 gigs of built-in storage, depending on the version that you picked up at the time. So those were the kind of built-in capacities. Closer look at the hardware. In the top, there's access to what seems like the power key. There's also a 3.5mm headphone jack, so that's always a nice thing about picking up a slightly older device. There's also a volume rocker, which feels pretty tactile and responsive, and a dedicated key for launching the autofocus camera on the back, to also tap to take an image and record video. The bottom here features a speaker, microphone, and a micro USB port for charging. You can tell that the chrome is a fingerprint magnet, and that's essentially it. Let's rip open the protective film on the front. we have a display which is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass, and you can see how it's slightly curved as well. It's not a laminated panel though, because back then actual curved LCDs or AMOLEDs were very rare, unlike devices today, such as the G Flex or the Galaxy Note series that has a curved display. This one just has a curved glass, but the display underneath is flat, which is why we see a bit of an air gap. But still, it looks quite modern and sleek because of this curved surface, which makes gestures navigation easier. There are capacitive keys for going back to the main menu, also a back key and a Windows search key. The top here features a earpiece. The top and bottom here are made out of soft touch rubber, which makes it a little bit easier to open up the keyboard, and you can see this is what it looks like. Another layer of film covers up this vertical QWERTY keyboard. When it's open, it's actually quite a large device, or at least a long device that is reminiscent of many modern 18:9 smartphones. The keyboard itself seems to be fairly large in size. It's comfortable and tactile to type on first impressions, and everything seems to be spaced out actually pretty well, so it's a nice little feature. The back here, you can see this is what it looks like. Underneath the slider part, you can see a continuation of the texture from the back panel, so quite a bit of attention to detail there. Let's see if there's any power left after so many years with the built-in battery. And there seems to be a little bit left, which is actually quite surprising. So immediately the battery seems to be critically low, but welcome to your Dell Venue Pro. Let's get started, and let's accept terms of use, and let's do recommended installation settings, second, and then change 2011 into 2017. All right, tap on OK. The screen seems actually quite sensitive and responsive. Right now it is roughly 140, so I'm gonna go with that. All right, and tap on next. So of course the benefits of AMOLED are apparent right away. You can see that the contrast between the black and the background and the color of the text is very sharp. So even though the screen resolution is technically not really high in terms of PPI, because it is just a WVGA display with 800 by 480, regardless, the colors really jump out at you, and it seems like it's quite bright as well. So even if there's a bit of light, if you look at it at different angles, it still seems to be quite visible, which again is always a plus with AMOLED panels. So here we can see that the Windows 7 menu, Windows Phone 7 menu, is very traditional. We just have these icons to select through, and then this tile interface to customize in the same way as the Metro interface on Windows 8 and Windows 8.1. So very similar, not too much differences going on as far as the operating system is concerned, but it's really, again, the hardware that I was interested in taking a look back at and kind of revisiting, and I guess seeing if this is still a phone that you could maybe use as a backup device here in 2017. So be sure to stay tuned for our retro/throwback review of this phone coming out soon, but this has just been our unboxing. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. This has been a look back at the Dell Venue Pro.